Good morning and welcome to This Week. Caught on tape.
The 47% were with him. We believe that they're victims. So my job is not to worry about those people.
That leaked video rocks the Romney campaign.
It's not elegantly stated, let me put it that way.
If you want to be president, you got to work for everybody.
Capping a tough month for the GOP nominee.
The candidate tries to limit the damage.
He has to get points back. He's behind in points.
Romney's senior advisors are fighting and not on the same page.
How do you turn this thing around?
Well, it doesn't need a turnaround.
Now, 44 days from the final vote, the big questions. Can Romney reboot his campaign? Will his September slump hurt Republican chances to take back the Senate and hold the House? And can President Obama seize the opening without stumbling himself? We'll ask our headliners, the chair of the Republican National Committee, Reince Priebus, and Obama campaign senior advisor, David Axelrod. Plus, full debate and analysis on our Powerhouse Roundtable, squaring off Nicole Wallace, Melody Barnes, Robert Reich, Ann Coulter, and the man who pressed both candidates on Univision this week.
A promise is a promise.
Anchor Jorge Ramos.
From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos. It's your voice, your vote. Reporting from ABC News Election Headquarters, George Stephanopoulos.
Hello again. With just over 6 weeks to go, it is safe to say that Mitt Romney can't afford another one like his last. From the inside account of political dysfunction that broke Sunday night to the electrical malfunction that grounded Aunt Romney's plane on Friday, nothing seemed to go right. And campaigning Saturday in Florida, running mate Paul Ryan fielded a question about griping from Republican insiders.
There will always be critics. There are always people who have other ideas on how to best to achieve things. But guess what? I have rarely seen a moment where the man and the moment have met so well.
On a rare trip to Ryan's home state of Wisconsin, President Obama pounded away at Romney's private thoughts on that 47%.
We can't get very far if we're just writing off half the country as a bunch of victims, or presume that somehow they want to be dependent on government or don't want to take responsibility for their own lives.
And with that, let's get right to our headliners. David Axelrod from the Obama campaign and the chair of the Republican National Committee, Reince Priebus. And Chairman Priebus, let me begin with you. Good morning. Thanks for coming to us from Wisconsin.
Hey,
President
good morning,
Obama,
Joe.
You saw him there yesterday. Voters are going to be hearing about that leaked video every single day.
Well, I mean, listen, I think Governor Romney's been pretty clear. It probably wasn't the best said moment in the campaign, and probably not the best week in the campaign. But I will say that I think we can look back at last week as a campaign in a couple months and say this was the defining week in both campaigns, where I think both campaigns are crystallizing around a central theme, which is going to be what kind of future do we want for our kids and grandkids? What type of America do we want for this country? Do we want the cradle-to-grave, life of Julia, Obamacare will take care of you from preschool to death America? Or do we want sort of a return to, opportunity, liberty, freedom, the type of America where when I grew up here in Racine and Kenosha, Wisconsin, that, my dad would point to a house as a union electrician, a nice house, and say, you know what, guy, if you go to school and you work hard, you're going to live in that house.
Let me interrupt you right there. You're saying you like the choice that was presented to voters last week?
No, here's what I would say. I think that it's an important question, and I think that the question presented to this country and the question that will be presented isn't so much, which we can talk about whether people are better off today than they were 4 years ago, and clearly we're not. But I think the more important question is what type of America and whether or not our kids are going to be better off 4, 10, and 20 years from today. And the policies that Barack Obama are putting in place, where we have seen just an enormous growth in people that are dependent on the government. I mean, it's just a fact. I don't think that's the type of America we want for our kids and grandkids. And I think that is an important question, and that is a question that should be presented to the American people. And Barack Obama's made everything worse, George.
Well, you say the question is, are Mitt Romney and his campaign up to the task of defeating him? And you know there were a chorus of Republican critics out this week as well, and none more forceful than Peggy Noonan in the Wall Street Journal. Here's what she wrote earlier in the week. She said, "It's time to admit that the Romney campaign is an incompetent one. It's not big, it's not brave, it's not thoughtfully tackling great issues. It's always been too small for the moment, and intervention is in order. Mitt, this isn't working." You know, she went on to amend that in her Saturday column, said she was just being polite, calling the Romney campaign incompetent, said instead it's a rolling calamity. Now, I know that Governor Romney says his campaign doesn't need a turnaround, but is he in denial?
No, I don't think so, George. And quite frankly, first of all, I think Peggy Noonan's really smart, and I read both of those columns. I think that where we're at as a movement and as Republicans and conservatives and people that are really worried about the growth of government in this country and what that means to our future, I respect and I admire people that get very concerned, and even if they're upset about, you know, something that happens in a campaign, or if the week needs to be better like last week, because I think that this is a different kind of campaign, George. I mean, I promise you on my life, I'm not sitting here talking to you because I'm worried about the future of the Republican Party. And I can guarantee you that all the people that we're talking to here in Wisconsin aren't either. We're worried about the future of this country, and that's why, you know, I think that the leeway given on our side of the aisle is very small to the likes of Peggy Noonan and other writers that say, hey, listen, guys, we need to be ahead. We need to be pounding away. I agree with that, and I think we are. I think that we had a good week last week, I think in retrospect, in that we were able to frame up the debate last week in the sense of what future do we want and do you want out there for your kids and grandkids? And clearly things are not going well in this country, George.
Even your governor, though, Chairman Priebus, Scott Walker, Republican governor of Wisconsin, has said that Governor Romney has to be much more bold and specific in laying out this case. And he wants to unleash Paul Ryan, the congressman from Wisconsin as well, thinks that the whole Romney campaign has to be more in the Ryan playbook, has to be putting out more bold and specific ideas. Is he right?
Well, I don't think he quite said it that way, George. I know he said that months ago. He's not right as we sit here today. I mean, the fact of the matter is...
He used the words bold and specific this week.
Listen, I'll tell you about specifics. First of all, Mitt Romney talks about all the time about reducing GDP spending from 25 cents on the dollar down to 20, reducing small business taxes from 35 to 25, reducing income taxes across the board by 20%. I mean, for crying out loud, we've got Paul Ryan on the ticket. There can't be anything more specific than a budget that we passed to get a hold of the 10-year debt window, the deficits that are out of control that the president promised that he would fix. As far as specifics go, we're the only ones talking about how to save Medicare. The president's the one that raided Medicare by $700 billion. I mean, we've got specifics coming out of our eyeballs, George, and so I just think that we need to keep pounding away on those specifics and keep talking about those specifics so that the American people know. Because I think that people out there, George, have made up their minds that clearly this president didn't fulfill the promises and the mission that he laid out 4 years ago. And now, over the next 46 days, we have to lay out to the American people, not just that we need to start having people in office that commit to the promises they make, but that we need to lay out the vision and lay out the specifics as we are doing, but more clearly and more consistently on a daily basis. I mean, we have to win the day. We have to win the mission on a daily basis.
A couple more quick questions. Governor Romney put out his 2011 tax return on Friday. The Obama campaign say that Romney continues to fail the test of full disclosure. Your response?
I think it's totally bogus. I mean, they've given away over 30% of their income to charity. The Romneys are, we've mentioned that I'm in Kenosha and Racine, Wisconsin today. You know, a lot of communities have families that are extraordinarily generous. That they're the ones that show up and save the symphony. They help build the wing and the library. The Romneys have been successful, but they've also been the types of people in the community that that we thank God for every day through their generosity and their kind heart. That's a narrative, George, that has to get out there. These are kind, compassionate, extraordinarily generous people. And for Barack Obama to play this small ball game when he's got a disaster overseas in the Middle East and in Northern Africa that he said he could solve, which he didn't, and now they're whistling past the graveyard on that issue. We've got a disaster in the economy in this country, and somehow this president thinks he's entitled to 4 more years. I think he should worry about intelligence briefings, getting the economy back on track, instead of debate prep and interviews with Pimp with a Limp and meetings with Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Finally,
I think he
I want
needs
to
to
ask
get serious.
I want to ask you about Republican chances in the Senate. It seems like the chances the Republicans will take over the Senate far less than they were just a few months ago. Your own Senate candidate in Wisconsin, Tommy Thompson, says the Romney campaign may be holding back his own chances as well. 2 quick questions. Are you still convinced the GOP can win in the Senate? And 2, now that it appears that Todd Akin is going to be the Senate candidate in Missouri, does he have the full and official backing of the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, the second one first. I mean, we're not going to play in Missouri with Todd Akin. I can tell you that. So it'll be yet to be seen whether he stays in or not. As far as the first question, I'm very confident we can take the Senate. I mean, I know that Tommy's going to win here in Wisconsin. He is a legend. It's like Harley Davidson, Miller Lite, Tommy Thompson. He is a brand. He's going to win. But then you go to Nebraska, North Dakota, Montana. That gives you 4. You hold Scott Brown. And then we haven't even talked about what's happening in Virginia, Ohio, Florida. I feel very good about it. And I would also keep an eye out on Hawaii and Linda Lingle out there. So we've got great opportunities. We're going to win this race because people know that we need a better future for this country. And so far, the last 4 years have been a disaster. I don't think people are hoping for 4 more years of this mess.
Chairman Priebus, thanks very much for your time this morning.